Welcome, everyone. We're diving deep today into a topic that's not just making headlines, but genuinely shaping our anxieties and our ambitions. The future of work in the age of AI. You've seen the stories, heard the fears, robots taking over, widespread job loss, this dramatic shift that could leave millions behind. But is that the full picture? The nuanced reality? Or is there something far more intricate, maybe more transformative happening just beneath the surface of those, dramatic warnings? Okay, let's truly unpack this. The future of work in the age of AI.
Indeed. And our mission with this deep dive is really to move beyond the sensational, the clickbait headlines and the speculation. We're leveraging comprehensive authoritative data here. We're talking about institutions like Goldman Sachs, the World Economic Forum, PwC, organizations that have done some really robust data-driven research into this very question. Our purpose is pretty clear. We want to extract the most important evidence-based insights. How is AI genuinely reshaping the global workforce? We'll be focusing not just on the disruption AI causes, but critically on the role of augmentation and, the cascading economic and social implications. We really want to equip you with a nuanced understanding, not just a set of scary predictions, so you can navigate this evolving landscape with, a bit more confidence.
And it's going to be quite an exploration, I think. We're going to start by confronting some of the most common myths, those almost reflexive fears about AI's impact on jobs. From there, we'll draw a really critical distinction between two key concepts, automation and augmentation, revealing which one seems to be the dominant force in the workforce right now. Then we'll look at some surprising reasons why AI's impact isn't uniform across every single industry. After that, we'll zoom out, look at the macro level forecasts from those big institutions you mentioned, but we'll also bring it right down to a very granular level, exploring specific job transformations through some pretty compelling case studies. And finally, we'll chart a clear path forward, discussing what individuals, companies, even policymakers need to do to manage this, monumental transition effectively. Get ready for some truly illuminating insights, I hope, that might just reshape how you think about your career and the economy as a whole. So let's kick off where many people's thoughts immediately jump when they hear AI and jobs together. That specter of mass unemployment. It's that image, isn't it? A sudden sweeping storm of job loss. AI just arrives, bam, and renders huge segments of the population obsolete almost overnight. It's a terrifying scenario, really. Plays out in countless articles, conversations.
It's an understandable fear, absolutely. And it's certainly pervasive in the public discourse, driving a lot of the anxiety we're hearing about. However, when we actually dig into the authoritative data, particularly from institutions like Goldman Sachs, the World Economic Forum, PwC, a much more, let's say, nuanced reality emerges. Their reports consistently emphasize that we are not witnessing some sudden, sweeping storm of job displacement. Instead, it looks much more like a selective and gradual transformation. These studies illustrate that AI is indeed fundamentally shifting the landscape of work, no doubt about it, but not in that all-at-once, apocalyptic way that often grabs the headlines. We're observing a really intricate, evolving interplay of forces here. It demands a far more precise and measured understanding than just, giving into blanket fear. It's really more about a restructuring of tasks and roles rather than the wholesale elimination of entire professions in one fell swoop.
That distinction between a sweeping storm and a selective gradual transformation feels absolutely critical. And it brings us right to a key concept you hinted at, the difference between automation and augmentation. A lot of people hear automation and they immediately jump to, a machine completely taking over a human job, full stop. But augmentation, that implies something quite different, doesn't it? Can you elaborate on why this distinction is so vital for us?
It is quite possibly the most crucial distinction we can make in this whole conversation because it fundamentally reframes how we should be thinking about the future of work. So automation, at its core, refers to the replacement of human labor for specific tasks or processes. Pretty straightforward. Imagine a machine or some software doing something entirely on its own that a human used to do from start to finish. Augmentation, on the other hand, describes using AI tools to enhance human capabilities and performance. It's about AI making us, say, more efficient, more accurate, or maybe enabling us to perform tasks we just couldn't do before, or at least do them much better and faster. And what the extensive research overwhelmingly supports, really, is that augmentation, not pure automation, is the dominant and most immediate trend we're seeing right now in the workforce. We're not really seeing widespread replacement. We're seeing widespread enhancement of what humans can achieve.
That's a really significant shift in perspective. So if augmentation is the dominant trend, what does the hard data actually tell us about this shift in practice? Can we look at some concrete numbers, something that brings this to life for you listening?
Absolutely, and the data is quite compelling when you look closely. According to a detailed analysis by McKinsey and Company, only about 5% of occupations globally are thought to be at risk of full automation by currently demonstrated technologies. Now, that's a relatively small fraction when you consider the sheer breadth of jobs out there. However, this is where the transformation really deepens. A much more significant shift is happening at the task level within jobs. McKinsey's analysis indicates that roughly 30% of the activities performed in 60% of all occupations could be automated. What this means, essentially, is that for the vast majority of workers, whether you're a factory floor manager, a financial analyst, even a CEO, your entire job isn't just going to be replaced, not likely. Instead, you'll probably be working alongside rapidly evolving AI tools and machines, and your roles, they'll fundamentally change as AI handles specific, automatable parts of your workflow. It's about taking certain, often repetitive activities off your plate.
Okay, that really clarifies the difference. It's not the whole job vanishing, it's the job transforming.
Yeah.
Specific tasks getting automated within it. You also mentioned empirical evidence supporting this augmentation effect. I seem to recall a fascinating study from Harvard Business School that looked directly at job postings. What did that research find?
Yes, that Harvard Business School study. It offers really direct empirical evidence of this shift, giving us real-world data points, not just projections. They meticulously examined changes in U.S. job postings, comparing the time before and after the widespread introduction of generative AI tools. And what they found was, well, they called it a heterogeneous effect, meaning the impact wasn't the same across all job types. Job postings for occupations identified as having high automation potential. As to jobs where many tasks could theoretically be taken over by AI, those actually saw a 17% decrease per quarter, per firm. Now, that's the displacement effect that often captures the headlines. But crucially, job postings for augmentation-prone occupations roles where AI tools enhance what humans can do, those increased by a significant 22% per quarter per firm.
Wow. Okay, so jobs where humans and AI work together are actually increasing, significantly more than the decrease in the automation-prone ones. That really emphasizes what you were saying about augmentation being the stronger driver right now.
It unequivocally provides direct empirical evidence. The augmentation effect is currently a more powerful driver of labor demand than the pure displacement effect. Plain and simple, based on that data. And this has profound implications for the nature of work itself, the most critical skill in the AI era. It's no longer just about mastering a single static role. Instead, it's about the ability to effectively collaborate with AI. That's becoming key. Human labor seems to be evolving from a purely production-based role where your value was mainly in executing repetitive tasks to one focusing more on higher-level oversight, verification, strategic input. Think about it this way. The traditional concept of a rigid job is kind of dissolving into a more fluid collection of tasks. Some of these tasks are highly automatable, sure, but others require uniquely human attributes, creativity, complex problem solving, emotional intelligence, that sort of thing. So for you, our listener, this means adaptability isn't just, a nice to have trait anymore. It's rapidly becoming the absolute key to continuous relevance and opportunity in your career. The causal link seems pretty clear. As AI handles the routine, automatable stuff, the remaining human responsibilities become more valuable, but only for those who can adapt to new workflows and step up to these elevated functions.
That's a powerful insight. The job dissolving into tasks really changes how we should be thinking about careers right now. Now, moving from that overall trend, let's talk about where AI is having its impact. Because as you said, it's clearly not evenly distributed across the economy. Many people might intuitively assume, perhaps, that AI would first replace jobs that seem simple or primarily manual, like a truck driver, maybe a construction worker. But then you hear these surprising statements like AI is more likely to impact coders than drivers. How do we make sense of that? It feels quite counterintuitive.
It does feel counterintuitive, and that's a truly insightful question because it challenges assumptions based on perceived job complexity. The fundamental factor at play here, and this really provides a powerful causal framework for understanding the uneven pace of AI adoption and disruption, is the availability of high-quality structured data. That's what AI models need to learn effectively. The World Economic Forum points this out quite astutely. Professions like coding, for instance, generate vast amounts of highly structured digital data. Think lines of code, comprehensive documentation, detailed error logs. It's all perfect training material for AI. Large language models, for example, they excel at learning patterns from these kinds of clean, organized data sets. Driving, by stark contrast, involves a massive amount of real-world, often unpredictable, and highly unstructured sensory data. Visual cues, auditory inputs, tactile feedback from the road, all happening in dynamic, constantly changing environments. This kind of nuanced real-time sensory data, especially when dealing with unexpected events, a deer jumping out, sudden black ice, is still much harder for AI to learn from comprehensively in every conceivable scenario to a degree of absolute safety and reliability. So it's not really about the inherent complexity of the job itself, but rather the nature and, critically, the availability of the data that underpins it.
So it really does boil down to the data beneath the surface, not necessarily the job's perceived difficulty or how complex it looks from the outside. That clarifies things a lot. Can you give us some concrete examples then? Industries that are really at the forefront of this disruption precisely because they are so data rich.
Absolutely. Let's take the finance sector. It is profoundly exposed to AI precisely because it operates on these vast, highly structured troves of data. Market data, transaction records, historical performance figures, it's all digitized and organized. This immense wealth of clean digital data makes it an ideal playground for machine learning applications, particularly in areas like high-frequency trading. Just to give you a sense of scale, high-frequency trading systems driven by algorithms already account for something like 70% of all U.S. equity market volume. These systems thrive on speed and recognizing patterns within massive data sets. Similarly, the technology and media sectors are right there at the cutting edge. Over 80% of executives in these fields expect reduced hiring volumes within the next couple of years as AI tools become more deeply integrated into their core business models. We're talking about automating aspects of software development, content creation, performing advanced data analytics, targeted advertising, you name it. The paradox here, as you hinted at, is that these industries' existing expensive digitization efforts have, in a way, made them more susceptible, but also perhaps more prepared for AI's transformative power.
That's a fascinating point. Their digital nature makes them both ripe for AI and potentially more vulnerable to its disruption. Now let's look at the flip side. What industries are currently lagging in AI adoption or seem relatively AI-proof, at least for now, precisely because they don't have this kind of readily available structured data?
Yeah, the contrast is quite stark. The construction industry, for example, is often cited as one of the most AI-proof industries out there currently. Now, this isn't because construction work is simple or uncomplicated. Far from it. Rather, it's due to a pervasive lack of digital records, a very non-standardized approach to projects. I mean, every construction site is unique, right? With its own quirks, challenges, and often, frankly, poor documentation of what works and what doesn't across different projects. AI thrives on consistent patterns and vast, clean data sets. Construction environments frequently lack that digital consistency. Similarly, healthcare. Despite its immense complexity and critical importance, it significantly lags in widespread AI adoption. And again, it's not for a lack of incredibly complex problems that AI could potentially help solve. The primary reasons are things like deep-seated data fragmentation, patient records, often siloed in different hospital systems, different clinics, even different departments within the same hospital. And then there are the stringent privacy regulations, like HIPAA in the US. HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, is designed to protect patient health information, and its strictures severely restrict how data can be collected, shared, and used. That creates significant hurdles for training large-scale AI models on medical data. But what's truly fascinating here, and it connects right back to our causal framework, is that while these industries might seem relatively safe now, their vulnerability could shift dramatically over time. As data collection becomes more pervasive, maybe more standardized, and perhaps legally permissible, imagine, for example, comprehensive video monitoring in operating rooms designed specifically to train surgical AI, as some sources speculate. Well, then, industries previously considered somewhat immune to AI disruption could become much more exposed, much more transformed in the future. The data landscape itself is constantly evolving.
So a core takeaway isn't about job complexity or how manual it is, but truly about the underlying data landscape, its structure, its accessibility for AI training. That's a crucial distinction. Okay, now that we've kind of grasped these micro-level dynamics, let's zoom out again and look at the bigger picture, the macro-level forecast. When we hear about AI's impact, we often get these really big, sometimes conflicting numbers thrown around from different highly respected institutions. How should we interpret that? How do we navigate these varied projections?
It's true. The scale of AI's impact on the workforce is definitely a subject of considerable debate. And authoritative projections from major research institutions do offer varied, sometimes seemingly conflicting forecasts. However, I think it's important to understand that this discrepancy isn't necessarily a sign of flawed research on anyone's part. Rather, it really highlights the inherent uncertainty and the immense complexity of this period of technological transition we're in. Each institution uses slightly different methodologies, different baselines, makes different assumptions about the pace of AI development, the speed of adoption. So while the specific numbers might vary, collectively they reflect the multifaceted nature of this profound shift. They're all trying to grapple with the same complex reality from different angles.
Okay, so with that uncertainty in mind, let's try to make sense of some of these different forecasts anyway. What are the key numbers and insights coming out of major players like the World Economic Forum, McKinsey, and Goldman Sachs?
Right, let's look at some of the prominent figures. The World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Report 2025, they project that by 2030, AI and other related tech could trigger the creation of about 170 million new roles worldwide. At the same time, though, they estimate that around 92 million existing jobs will be displaced globally. So significant churn, definitely, but their forecast points towards a net positive in job creation overall. Then you have McKinsey and Company. Their analysis presents a similar picture of substantial change. Their midpoint scenario predicts that around 400 million workers could be displaced globally by 2030. That's a huge number. However, and this is crucial, this displacement is projected to be more than offset by the creation of a massive 555 million to 890 million new jobs. So again, suggesting a significant net positive effect on overall employment numbers globally, despite the massive disruption.
That's a staggering number of jobs potentially being created. But I recall Goldman Sachs having a somewhat different take, perhaps a bit more conservative, on the overall employment impact. How does their forecast stack up against those?
Goldman Sachs research does indeed estimate a much more modest and potentially temporary impact on overall employment levels, especially in the near term. They predict that widespread AI adoption will likely cause only a modest, relatively temporary increase in unemployment. They estimate the jobless rate might rise by just about half a percentage point during the main transition period as displaced workers look for new positions. Their baseline assumption is that AI could potentially displace maybe 6–7% of the U.S. workforce. However, they express considerable skepticism that AI will lead to large, persistent employment reductions over the next decade. Their outlook is generally more optimistic about the speed of reemployment and the historical resilience of labor markets when faced with technological shifts.
And the skepticism from Goldman Sachs, it really stands in contrast to some of the more, well, alarmist warnings we've heard, particularly from certain tech leaders. I'm thinking of OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, who has publicly predicted that entire job categories could be wiped out by AI. What explains that fundamental difference in perspective? Why do we see such different outlooks from, say, economists versus technologists on this?
That's a critical question, and it really gets to the heart of the debate. The discrepancy often stems from a fundamental difference in how these various groups approach the problem. Institutional bodies, like Goldman Sachs, they tend to focus on macroeconomic data, historical precedent, and the complex, often slow-moving forces of market adaptation and human behavior. They look back at how past technological revolutions, like, say, the widespread adoption of computers or the internet, initially caused temporary frictional unemployment. That's that natural, temporary jobless period workers face when moving between jobs or during big economic shifts. But ultimately, those revolutions led to net job creation and significant economic growth. So their analysis projects that historical pattern onto the arrival of AI. Tech leaders, on the other hand, often focus more on the theoretical potential of the technology itself at a micro level. They see firsthand the raw capabilities, the accelerating progress of AI, and they extrapolate from what AI could do if it were fully deployed, maybe without always fully considering the often considerable economic, social, regulatory, and practical hurdles that slow down widespread adoption and transformation in the real world. So Goldman Sachs, for example, is suggesting that while AI is powerful, the historical patterns of temporary frictional unemployment during tech transitions are likely to hold true again, rather than AI leading to some fundamentally new paradigm of mass persistent joblessness. It's kind of a question of looking at what's possible versus what's probable, given all the interacting forces at play.
Okay, so if we try to synthesize all of this, what's the general consensus emerging from these major institutions? Is it ultimately net job loss, net job gain, or is it just more complex than that?
The consensus among these leading institutions seems pretty clear, actually. While the gross numbers of jobs potentially displaced and created are indeed very large, massive churn, the net effect on overall employment is likely to be positive in the long term. This suggests that new jobs will emerge to largely offset and perhaps even exceed those lost. The key challenge, therefore, is not really a lack of work in the aggregate. It's more about the significant transitions that will be required of the workforce. The real friction won't necessarily be in the total number of jobs available, but rather in the substantial mismatch between the skills of displaced workers and the new, evolving requirements of these emerging jobs. Additionally, there are challenges related to the geographical and demographic clustering of these new roles. Job opportunities might not always pop up where the displaced workers are located, or be equally accessible to all age groups or genders. This skills mismatch and the geographical and demographic disparities, those are the real hurdles we need to focus on addressing proactively.
That makes perfect sense. It's not about the total number of jobs, but about enabling people to move effectively from one type of work to another, bridging that skills gap. Okay, now that we've got the macro picture, let's really drill down into some specific job roles. You mentioned earlier that AI isn't necessarily hitting manual labor first, but is instead profoundly impacting what you called the administrative and financial core. Tell us more about that. How is AI redefining roles like, say, accountants or administrative assistants?
Right. These roles, often forming the operational backbone of pretty much every company, are typically characterized by repetitive, data-heavy tasks. And that characteristic makes them exceptionally susceptible to AI-driven automation. AI's core strengths, its almost unparalleled ability for rapid data collection, processing, analysis, are directly applicable to their daily functions. An insightful study by Indeed even indicated that about 1/4 of professionals in India are already anticipating the widespread adoption of agentic AI tools and systems within their jobs. And just to clarify, agentic AI tools aren't just passive systems. They're AI programs that can not only process information, but also make decisions and carry out actions independently, almost like a virtual assistant on steroids, managing complex workflows with minimal human input. The reason for their particular vulnerability is pretty straightforward. AI-powered bookkeeping services, for instance, can efficiently collect, store, analyze financial data at a fraction of the cost, and often with greater accuracy than a human doing the same routine tasks. These systems can automate functions like data entry, reconciliation of accounts, even payroll processing. This not only significantly reduces common manual errors, but also, and this is key, it frees up human professionals for more strategic advisory roles. This shift is already becoming apparent. Occupations like accountants and auditors are explicitly listed as high risk for significant transformation in reports from both Goldman Sachs and PwC.
So it's not necessarily that the accountant disappears entirely, but their role fundamentally changes. They become maybe more of a strategic partner, a financial advisor, interpreting the AI's output. What are the broader consequences of this specific transformation for the workforce, particularly maybe for those just entering these professions?
Exactly. This transformation isn't a simple automation story. It's really a redefinition of the professional's value proposition. The worth of an accountant shifts from being primarily a data processor, a bean counter, if you will, to becoming a strategic financial advisor. Someone who can interpret the complex outputs from AI systems, provide nuanced strategic insights, consult with clients on high-level financial planning. Now, while this elevates the human role to a potentially more intellectually stimulating and higher value function, it also means that individuals who can't make that shift, who are unable to adapt to working with these new tools and pivot to higher level analytical and advisory functions, they are at high risk. This trend is already contributing to the consolidation of basic content creation roles and also the potential drying up of traditional entry-level jobs in fields like IT support, back office administration, and data entry. Why? Because generative AI tools are entering mainstream workflows and taking over many of these foundational tasks. We're even observing a disproportionate impact on younger workers. Unemployment among 20 to 30-year-olds in these tech-exposed occupations has risen by almost 3 percentage points since the beginning of 2025. This seems like a direct consequence of AI removing some of those traditional on-ramps, the roles that historically provided foundational experience for these professions.
That's a really critical point about the entry-level jobs. It raises an important question about how new talent will gain the necessary experience in these evolving fields. Okay, let's turn our attention now to another role that's frequently discussed in the context of AI's impact: customer service representatives, or CSRs. Many people, including, as we mentioned, prominent tech leaders like Sam Altman, have warned that this is one area that could be, in his words, totally gone due to AI. Is that prediction likely to be accurate?
It's true. Sam Altman did issue that stark warning about the potential for significant displacement in customer service. And it's understandable why. CSRs typically handle an extremely high volume of queries and issues, right? And many of those are repetitive, rules-based, predictable. This indeed makes the role a prime candidate for AI-driven transformation, and there's a clear economic imperative for companies to implement these solutions. AI chatbots, for example, they offer round-the-clock assistance, 204/7 without the limits of human working hours or geography. They're seen as far more efficient because they can instantly handle routine queries, which then frees up human agents to focus on the more complex, high-value, and often emotionally charged issues.
And do we have any sort of quantitative examples that really illustrate that efficiency gain in action?
We absolutely do. A really compelling example comes from a food and grocery delivery company. They implemented an AI chatbot to manage common issues related to subscriptions, delivery problems, things like that. They reported a remarkable 76% faster average response time compared to their previous human-only system. And even more impressively, they saw a 47% increase in user messages. That suggests the chatbot made it easier and faster for customers to engage, which in turn significantly improved customer retention and overall satisfaction. So this provides a clear quantitative demonstration of AI's efficiency gains and its ability to potentially enhance the customer experience while reducing operational costs. So yes, while the warning about roles being gone is stark, the reality, as we've discussed in other areas, often seems to lean more towards augmentation. So while the specific tasks performed by a CSR are being profoundly transformed, the role itself isn't being entirely eliminated in most contexts, at least not yet. Instead, the human agent's role seems to be getting elevated. They move from answering those basic, frequently asked questions, which the AI now handles efficiently, to managing the more nuanced, emotionally charged, and complex problems that AI simply cannot yet solve effectively. Furthermore, the integration of AI tools for things like customer sentiment analysis allows human agents and management to better understand the emotional tone and perceptions within customer interactions. This enables more targeted and effective human intervention precisely when empathy, critical thinking, or deep problem solving are most needed. This really is a quintessential example in the augmentation versus displacement debate. The technology isn't just replacing the human, it's fundamentally changing the nature of their work, shifting the focus towards tasks that require uniquely human skills: empathy, critical thinking, advanced problem solving, navigating complex social dynamics.
That's actually a really hopeful view for customer service roles. It shifts the focus squarely onto what humans are uniquely good at, that empathy, that complex problem solving. It represents a fundamental change in skill requirements, elevating the human role rather than just eliminating it. Okay, let's look at another information-based profession, one that deals with vast amounts of text and data. The legal field. How are roles like paralegals and legal assistants, traditionally reliant on processing immense amounts of information, being impacted by AI?
Paralegals and legal assistants perform foundational legal work that is inherently information intensive. We're talking extensive document review, complex legal research, drafting various legal documents. These roles are heavily reliant on processing and analyzing vast volumes of information, a task at which AI, frankly, excels exponentially compared to humans. As a result, the deployment of AI tools is leading to a significant transformation in these professions. Some estimates suggest automation could potentially impact up to 40% of the average paralegal's workday as routine tasks get offloaded to AI. The efficiency gains are profound and pretty well documented across several key areas. Take document review and e-discovery, for instance. AI tools use sophisticated predictive coding algorithms to sift through thousands, sometimes millions of documents to pinpoint key data, relevant clauses, specific pieces of evidence. This drastically reduces the time and effort needed for e-discovery. That's the process of identifying and producing electronically stored info in litigation, and it significantly minimizes the risk of overlooking important evidence that a human might just miss. For automated legal research, platforms like the early ROSS Intelligence or more mainstream tools now, like Westlaw Edge, leverage natural language processing. This allows them to understand plain English questions and turn what used to be hours of laborious legal research, sifting through case law, statutes, regulations, into mere minutes. Additionally, AI tools for document drafting can produce preliminary drafts of contracts, briefs, other legal documents based on predefined templates, automatically inserting necessary clauses, ensuring consistency and accuracy across a firm's output.
So it's about radically speeding up the, let's call it the grunt work of legal practice, freeing up their time for potentially higher value tasks. But does that mean the paralegal role just goes away entirely? Or is this, again, another case of augmentation, similar to what we've seen in other professional areas?
This is indeed a perfect illustration of augmentation in action, even within a highly specialized field like law. While the mundane, repetitive, high-volume tasks are increasingly being automated, a human interface remains essential for the foreseeable future, according to experts, for critical functions that AI in its current state simply cannot perform reliably. These include things like verifying AI outputs to avoid hallucinations, when AI generates confident but entirely made up or factually incorrect information. In a legal context, that could be absolutely catastrophic. Humans are also crucial for identifying where legal liability might lie in the AI value chain, especially when an AI makes an error with consequences. And perhaps most importantly, human legal professionals are indispensable for providing nuanced, business-led advice that requires a deep understanding of the client's specific context, their strategic goals, and all the complex human factors that inevitably influence legal outcomes. What's even more fascinating, though, is that a completely new and potentially highly valuable role is rapidly emerging: the legal prompt writer. This role requires not just a deep understanding of the law itself, but also a sophisticated understanding of how AI models process language and how to craft precise, effective prompts to elicit the most accurate and useful legal outputs from the AI. It's a whole new blend of legal expertise and AI literacy.
That's incredible. A brand new job category emerging directly from the need to interact effectively with AI. It really hammers home that need for continuous learning and adaptation, even in highly specialized traditional fields like law. Now, you mentioned earlier that construction seems relatively AI-proof for now, mainly due to a lack of structured data. But what about another manual labor environment that is inherently data-rich, like a large-scale warehouse or distribution center? That seems like a stark counterexample, potentially ripe for AI transformation.
It absolutely is a stark counterexample. While construction often lacks that structured digital data, warehouse logistics environments are incredibly rich in it. Think detailed information on inventory levels, order fulfillment data, precise product locations, optimized delivery routes, all that stuff. This abundance of structured data makes the warehouse sector incredibly ripe for advanced AI and robotics integration. And the overarching goal of this widespread automation is usually multifaceted: improve efficiency, significantly reduce labor costs associated with repetitive manual tasks, and, crucially, enhance safety across the entire operation. The introduction of AI-powered robotics is fundamentally changing the nature of work on the warehouse floor. We're seeing widespread deployment of things like automated mobile robots, or AMRs. These use AI algorithms to navigate complex environments autonomously, transport inventory from point A to point B, intelligently avoid obstacles like human workers or other machinery. Alongside them, you have sophisticated robotic arms performing precise picking, sorting, and packaging tasks with remarkable speed and accuracy. A compelling case study comes from the implementation of a specific robot, the UWM-666, in a large distribution center. Its deployment resulted in a staggering 99% pallet counting accuracy, a direct testament to AI's precision. Furthermore, it achieved a 40% reduction in labor costs for the specific tasks it took over, and an impressive 80% improvement in overall warehouse safety. This safety improvement is largely attributed to the system's AI-driven navigation and obstacle avoidance capabilities, which minimize congestion and significantly reduce the collision risks common in busy warehouse environments.
Those numbers are truly striking, especially that dramatic cost reduction and the huge safety improvements. But what does this mean for the human workers in these warehouses? Are they simply being displaced en masse? Or are new roles emerging here as well, similar perhaps to what we saw with the administrative or legal professions?
That's the crucial distinction, and it's essential to clarify this point. While AI and robotics may indeed reduce the need for certain types of manual labor within the warehouse, particularly those highly repetitive tasks of picking, packing, or moving goods, it concurrently seems to be creating entirely new jobs. These new roles are primarily popping up in areas like oversight, managing the robotic fleet maintenance of these sophisticated systems, and system integration, making sure the AI and robotics work seamlessly with existing warehouse management software and human operations. So while a traditional picker's role might diminish, a robot maintenance technician's role or an AI systems coordinator's role emerges. However, it's also important to acknowledge the significant challenges here, especially for smaller companies. The initial investment costs for this kind of advanced robotics and AI infrastructure are substantial, and the complex integration challenges with existing enterprise systems can be really formidable barriers to adoption. This might make it harder for smaller players to jump on board immediately, potentially creating a bit of a divide between large, highly automated facilities and smaller, more traditional ones.
Okay, so similar to other areas, it's fundamentally a shift in the nature of work, the type of jobs, rather than a total elimination, though with significant barriers for some. We've explored these micro-level transformations across different sectors now. Let's widen our lens again and look at how this all adds up in terms of the broader economic and social impacts. Let's start with what many hope for, the economic upsides, specifically thinking about productivity, growth, and maybe wages.
The analysis of the authoritative data we've looked at strongly indicates that AI is poised to be an incredibly powerful driver of economic growth, potentially initiating a new era of productivity gains. PwC's 2025 Global AI Jobs Barometer, which is a massive study, drawing on insights from over 1 billion job ads and thousands of company financial reports globally, offers really compelling evidence on this. It finds that since 2022, productivity growth in industries most exposed to AI, I think financial services, software publishing has nearly quadrupled. It rose from about 7% to an impressive 27%. Now, contrast that sharply with industries least exposed to AI, like mining or hospitality. Their productivity growth over the same period has either stagnated or, in some cases, even declined slightly. This dramatic divergence strongly suggests that AI isn't just an incremental improvement. It seems to be acting as a fundamental transformative driver of economic output and efficiency, at least in the sectors that can leverage it effectively.
That's a truly astounding leap in productivity for those AI-exposed industries, a near quadrupling. And you also mentioned wages. Are workers in these industries, or maybe those specifically with AI skills, actually seeing a tangible benefit in their paychecks?
They absolutely are, according to the data. This increased value creation that AI enables seems to be directly translating into significant benefits for workers who possess AI-related skills. Globally, wages are reported to be rising more than twice as fast in industries most exposed to AI. We're talking an average of 16.7% growth compared to just 7.9% in less exposed sectors over the period studied. But here's where it gets really impactful. Workers with advanced AI skills are at a massive advantage. They command a significant and rapidly growing wage premium. This premium now averages a remarkable 56% globally, and that's more than double the premium observed just the previous year. It's growing incredibly fast. And this substantial premium isn't confined to just one sector like tech. It reportedly exists across virtually every industry analyzed. This data collectively makes a very strong case that widespread AI adoption is creating what economists often call a virtuous cycle. AI drives revenue growth per employee, which then allows companies to afford higher salaries. These higher salaries, in turn, attract and retain top talent with AI skills, which then fuels further AI adoption and innovation, creating this positive feedback loop of growth and rising wages, at least for those with the in-demand skills.
So if you have those AI skills, you're clearly in high demand and getting paid extremely well for it. That definitely paints a very positive picture of the economic upside. But earlier, you also hinted at some significant areas of economic dislocation, despite these macro positives. What are the downsides? Or the challenges, maybe, that we need to be acutely aware of here?
Yes, despite the generally positive macroeconomic data on aggregate job creation and productivity growth, a deeper look absolutely reveals significant areas of economic dislocation and, worryingly, deepening inequality. While Goldman Sachs, for instance, predicts maybe only a temporary rise in unemployment during this transition, that period of frictional unemployment is not without real and often severe consequences for the displaced workers and for specific demographics. The data clearly shows a disproportionate impact on younger workers, as we touched on. For instance, unemployment among 20 to 30-year-olds in tech-exposed occupations has reportedly risen by almost 3 percentage points since the start of 2025. This is notably higher than for their same-aged counterparts in other trades, and even for the overall tech workforce. This trend seems to corroborate anecdotal reports that generative AI is indeed contributing to hiring headwinds facing recent college graduates in technology, as some of those traditional entry-level roles we discussed are being impacted or simply disappearing. Furthermore, the very mechanism that drives that impressive 56% wage premium, essentially, a scarcity of trained talent, is the same mechanism that creates a widening skills gap and potentially exacerbates societal inequality. A recent Randstad report reveals a stark AI skills gap. 75% of companies are actively adopting AI, but only a meager 35% of their current workforce talent has received any meaningful AI training in the last year. And this gap is not uniform across demographics either. There's reportedly a significant 42 percentage point gender divide in AI training opportunities. And a notable age gap too, with only about 1 in 5 baby boomers being offered AI skilling compared to almost half of Gen Z workers. This data strongly indicates that AI is not a neutral technology in its impact. Its benefits are currently accruing disproportionately to a select few who already possess the skills or have the access needed to navigate this new landscape. If this isn't proactively addressed, it really could leave millions behind, potentially contributing to widening societal divides and maybe even social unrest down the line.
That paints a much more sobering picture, doesn't it? It's not just about jobs or economic output figures, but about fairness, equity, access, and the very real potential for technology to deepen existing inequalities in society. Beyond those economic metrics, what about the profound social and psychological toll? That's often overlooked in these big macro discussions about AI and the economy.
This is an absolutely critical aspect, and one that demands our deep attention because it speaks to the very fabric of human well-being. The AI transformation carries a significant social and psychological cost that we really ignore at our peril. The research points towards a looming occupational identity crisis for many people. For countless individuals, work is far more than just a paycheck, right? It's often an anchor that provides purpose, shapes identity, offers a sense of accomplishment, and serves as a primary source of social belonging, community. As jobs disappear or fundamentally change beyond recognition, so too can these foundational pillars of a person's life. This creates what one researcher aptly terms the AI precariat, a potential new class of workers defined by pervasive insecurity, social exclusion, and profound anxiety about their economic future. If this growing segment of the population is left unaddressed, it could, quite tragically, lead to recurrent anger directed against governments, against social institutions, fueled by a sense of being left behind, of being discarded. For millions, the grim choice feels stark right now. Either scramble desperately to learn AI to try and stay relevant in a rapidly shifting job market, or risk drifting into this new, marginalized class, uncertain where they can possibly fit into the evolving AI economy. It's also crucial to acknowledge the inherent limitations of AI tools themselves and their potential negative impact on the human experience of work. Analysis suggests that these tools can, at times, cause harm and are often met with dissatisfaction and disengagement from human users. This user dissatisfaction seems to stem from several factors. Their inherent opaqueness, we often don't understand how they arrive at their conclusions, which makes it hard to trust them completely. There are occasional errors which require constant vigilance. There's sometimes blatant disregard for critical contexts or nuanced situations that a human would intuitively grasp. And their fundamental lack of tacit knowledge or deep domain expertise that only comes from years of human experience. This really highlights the severe limits of trying to apply a purely technological solution to deeply human problems. And it absolutely underscores the continued essential need for human oversight, judgment, and emotional intelligence in the loop. Without a concerted, compassionate effort to address this social and emotional impact, the undeniable economic benefits of AI might just come at too high a cost, potentially creating a society marked by deep-seated insecurity and a profound loss of collective purpose.
That's a powerful and deeply important point. The human cost could be immense if we don't actively plan for these broader implications, beyond just the productivity numbers and the economic charts. So with all these complex challenges and opportunities laid out, what is the path forward? What does this all mean for individuals, for companies, and for policymakers as we try to navigate this profound transition? Let's start with individuals. What's becoming the new skill currency? Maybe something that goes beyond the traditional university degree.
Well, the traditional model of a static one-time education, get your degree and you're ostensibly set for life, that model, by all accounts, seems to be rapidly becoming obsolete. The pace of change in the skills employers are actually looking for is accelerating at an incredible rate. It's now reportedly 66% faster in occupations most exposed to AI. That's a dramatic leap from just 25% last year. This means what's relevant today might quickly become outdated tomorrow or next year. Consequently, the demand for formal degrees, in some areas at least, seems to be diminishing, with recruiters increasingly prioritizing demonstrated skills over traditional academic credentials. A striking 78% of them are now saying they do this. The new paradigm for individual career success looks like one of continuous lifelong learning and dynamic upskilling. Things like on-demand certifications, micro-credentials, maybe proof of practical application through projects. These might hold far more value soon than a traditional degree in some fields, because they demonstrate adaptability, the ability to rapidly acquire new technological proficiencies, and crucially, the capacity to bridge complex technical systems with broader business needs and human interaction. It's becoming more about demonstrating what you can do right now, and maybe more importantly, what you can learn next.
So it's really about constant evolution, demonstrating specific, immediately applicable skills rather than just relying on a piece of paper earned years ago. That's a huge shift in how we need to approach careers and education. What about companies then? What are the leading corporate strategies for adapting to this massive AI transformation beyond just, buying the latest software?
Leading companies seem to understand that AI isn't simply a cost-cutting tool or just a way to replace jobs. They are fundamentally rewiring how companies run to truly capture transformative value from AI. A McKinsey global survey found that the redesign of workflows, literally rethinking and changing how work gets done, how humans and AI interact within those processes, that actually has the biggest effect on an organization's ability to see a positive EBIT impact. And EBIT, for those unfamiliar, is earnings before interest and taxes, a key measure of a company's operating profit. So it's about optimizing that human-AI interaction for maximum financial and operational gain, not just swapping humans for machines. In addition to workflow redesign, progressive companies are taking proactive and often significant steps to train their workforces, fostering a culture of widespread AI literacy. We see some compelling case studies here. Crow, for instance, a major consulting firm, created an internal AI guild. It's a place where employees from different business units could collaboratively learn about AI in real time, share insights, best practices. It fostered a culture of casual collaboration and networking around AI. KPMG, another global professional services firm, is investing heavily in a Gen AI 101 program. That's a foundational curriculum designed to enhance workforce capabilities in AI applications, but also, crucially, to educate on the inherent risks and ethical considerations of the technology, ensuring responsible deployment. And PwC, yet another major player, launched a highly engaging, gamified curriculum they called Power Up. The goal was to boost AI literacy across its entire global workforce, using things like quizzes, interactive modules, even prizes, to create a fun, engaging learning environment.
Those are really great examples of proactive training and internal skill development. It sounds like a lot of these leading companies are also trying to build trust with their employees around AI, rather than just imposing it from the top down.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Beyond just the training aspect, leading companies seem to be focusing on building trust by actively including employees in the co-creation and iterative development of AI solutions. Adobe, for instance, reportedly views its own employees as customer zero, meaning they're the very first critical test users for new AI features. They encourage them to beta test, provide extensive feedback on new generative AI applications before they're even released to external customers. This approach fosters a deep sense of ownership and partnership among employees. It helps ensure that the technology is designed not just for raw efficiency, but also to truly enhance rather than diminish human creativity and artistry, which is core to Adobe's business. The causal relationship seems clear here. Corporate success in the AI era is as much a cultural and operational challenge, one of change management, trust building, continuous learning, as it is a purely technological one. Companies that prioritize training, trust, and co-creation will almost certainly outperform those that simply view AI as a blunt instrument for cutting costs or headcount.
That's a powerful and actionable message for businesses listening out there. Finally, let's talk about the biggest picture of all, policy. What's the essential role of policymakers in trying to ensure a fair, equitable, and effective transition as AI fundamentally reshapes the world of work for everyone?
Well, the rapid and pervasive pace of AI adoption absolutely necessitates a robust and proactive public sector response if we want to manage this transition fairly and equitably. The potential for increased job churn, as we've discussed, and the very real emergence of an AI precariat class, that group facing persistent insecurity and anxiety, demands a serious reevaluation of our existing social safety nets and our traditional educational models. One key recommendation often floated for policymakers is to move beyond simply encouraging upskilling and to create concrete mechanisms that make retraining financially and logistically accessible for everyone. This could include innovative solutions like creating worker retraining accounts, maybe functioning similarly to retirement accounts, enabling workers to use tax-deferred money to pay for certified job retraining programs throughout their careers. Additionally, ensuring universal access to high-speed internet is a critical foundational step. It's hard to believe, but a staggering 24 million Americans reportedly still lack access, which severely hinders their ability to utilize online resources for skill development or participate in remote work opportunities. Furthermore, that potential for increased job churn due to AI and automation highlights an urgent need to reevaluate the portability of benefits. Our current systems often tie crucial benefits like health insurance and retirement plans to specific employers. This becomes a significant barrier when workers need or want to transition frequently between jobs or into gig work. Policymakers should actively consider making health and retirement benefits more portable, detaching them from specific employers, so that workers who transition frequently don't lose out on their financial futures or their health security. And finally, perhaps more radically, to share the immense productivity gains from AI more broadly across society and maybe mitigate potential social unrest, companies and policymakers could even consider exploring new models of work, such as a 4-day work week. This isn't just theory. It has already shown tangible positive results in some companies that have trialed it. For instance, one software company reported an impressive 130% increase in revenue in addition to fewer sick days after adopting the model. It demonstrates that productivity gains can be shared in ways that enhance worker well-being and potentially societal stability. This kind of comprehensive, multifaceted approach, individual, corporate, and policy, seems absolutely essential to navigate the coming decades effectively and justly.
So it's clearly a multifaceted approach. It involves individual responsibility and that commitment to continuous learning, proactive corporate innovation in workflows and training, and crucially, smart, proactive public policy that ensures fairness and broad access to opportunity. That brings us towards the culmination of this deep dive, I think. What an illuminating journey this has been. It seems clear now that the AI transformation of the global workforce is profound, yes, absolutely, but it is deeply nuanced. The authoritative data we've looked at overwhelmingly supports the conclusion that the dominant effect we're seeing right now is augmentation, AI empowering humans, not mass unemployment engulfing everything. While millions of jobs may indeed be profoundly transformed or even specific tasks within roles displaced, the projections suggest even more new roles will likely be created. The net employment effect looks likely to be positive in the long term. This isn't just a simple technological upgrade. It really feels like a fundamental shift in the very nature of work itself, evolving from maybe a static production-based model to a more dynamic task-based one, where humans work alongside AI to unlock potentially unprecedented levels of productivity and innovation.
And while that net positive picture is certainly encouraging, we absolutely cannot afford to ignore the significant challenges that lie just beneath the surface, as we discussed. The benefits of AI, as we've seen from the data, are currently accruing disproportionately to a select few who possess the requisite skills and have access to the opportunities. This is demonstrably leading to a widening wage gap and a palpable sense of anxiety and insecurity for those who feel left behind, potentially giving rise to what we've termed the AI precariat. The key challenge, therefore, isn't really a lack of work in the aggregate number. It's much more about how to ensure a fair, equitable, and effective transition for everyone caught up in this change. It's about managing that friction for those whose roles are evolving dramatically or disappearing.
And that fair and effective transition, as we've explored in depth today, requires a truly multi-pronged approach, doesn't it? Corporations need to prioritize that redesign of workflows, optimize human-AI collaboration, invest heavily in continuous employee training and upskilling, and really build a culture of trust and co-creation from within. Workers, for their part, need to embrace a mindset of lifelong learning, prioritize developing those adaptable, uniquely human skills over perhaps traditional static credentials. And crucially, policymakers have a huge role. They must create a new framework of support, from innovative portable benefits to accessible worker retraining accounts, to ensure that the immense economic benefits potentially generated by AI are shared more equitably across society, mitigating dislocation and fostering a more inclusive future for all.
Ultimately, the successful navigation of this profound transformation, it will define not just the future of work, but really the future of society itself. This isn't just a tech story, it's fundamentally a human story. How will you choose to engage with this rapidly evolving landscape, and what kind of future do you want to help build?
A truly powerful question to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today. Keep learning, keep adapting, and we'll catch you on the next one.